Hi everyone and hello to Liam. This is Nimuel and in this video I'll be presenting my modeling and texturing progress in Maya for the second stage of the course. But firstly, let's do a quick recap of my first assignment. In A1, I laid out my goals for the project is to build a model that embodies my aesthetic preferences while drawing inspiration from Tara's atmospheric self-portraits and the surrealist depiction of human anatomy in Nick's paintings. And as you can see on the right is my very first sketch for this course. It's a response to the idea of a sculpture that has great influence on myself, and although it's quite embarrassing to say, but I'm obsessed with incorporating my identity into my own work as a designer. The concept was drawn from my tattoo laser removal experience that has been haunting me in the past year with symptoms of bleeding and itchiness deep inside my bones. I would often look into myself in the mirror and wondering if I have never had tattoos. Continuing from A1, I modeled the spine and the ribcage to put on top of the thighs. I did this by modeling only one side and then mirror it to make a completed bone structure. It was a challenging part, but trusting the process and looking up at existing sketchfab models and also studies drawings helped me a great deal. After moving on to UV unwrapping, I realized that the sitting down pose was a nightmare to work with, so I was advised to model a standing up pose instead so that I could rig it later. To be honest, remodeling the legs were very tough that I gave up on modeling the skull, as I wanted to emphasize my idea on a giant eye, which I thought would be really cool to do textures with. So I looked at more sketchfab models and tutorials that helped me develop the leg part. I used smooth shading to make the shapes curvy and lovable. I'm really proud of myself for completing this task that I thought was impossible. The UVs were so much easier to unwrap after having many conversations with my classmates. I spent a whole week to finalize the UVs, then export them to Procreate on my iPad to paint on top. I had to make many changes along the way as sometimes when applying them onto the model, the seams were showing very clearly. I had to decrease my gradient colors and smooth out the edges to avoid this. This was actually the part that I enjoyed the most because I could just desaturate my diffuse textures and increase the contrast to make a bump map that acts alongside with the colors, which I did the same for the rendering of the eye, and I think it turns out great when applying on the shiny texture. The funny part here is that my UV is not that perfect, especially with the rib cage. I kind of just added seams onto the visible parts and used unfold on the remainings, leaving me with chaotic UVs. I tried my best to sew the corresponding parts together so that when I apply colors on, it wouldn't look so distorted. I learned from Reddit that you can create noise in Photoshop to create realistic looking skin, and I loved how it turned out. The red bumps on the skin looks exactly like my skin when it gets itchy from the laser treatment, so I think this is also a successful part. In Maya, I don't have a spec map as I don't think there's any part of my model that needs shininess, so instead I make bumps for everything. I enjoyed playing around with bump values on different materials and using different images to create bumps. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to use free textures online, but for the head, I've used a rusty paint texture and I found it on Google Images. I fell in love with it. I would need to reconsider this in the next stage as I would prefer making everything myself. For the diorama, I'm inspired by Kuroki, a boss from Shuffle that has two faces in which her colors are inverted. To compose this, I'm thinking of duplicating and rigging my models so that they're sitting opposite of each other like this. My intended diorama will have grass and possibly water as part of the scene and animations to better portray a reflective environment. Thank you so much for watching. and especially Liam and 3D modeling classmates, because without your help, I won't be able to achieve this. Thank you so much.